Welcome everyone, this is Pineleaf News and you are listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Andang,
Hey everybody.
Atheros,
Hi.
Draculetta,
Hey, everybody.
Rexwolf,
Hello, Lotro.
Sithrith,
Hello.
and we'll head on right into our news this week. And the only real news item is that update 15.1 is now up on Bullroar. Has anyone had a chance to actually check this out?
Nope.
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 I checked at the patch notes. There is many just bug fixes for various things, notably the Beyonding and the Epic Battle, obviously. There's a couple of things that I think I pointed out there that were kind of interesting, but aside from that, it's mainly just the Fellowship version of Pelagear that is currently being tested.
All right, very well. So at least that confirms that we are going to get the Fellowship version of Pelagear. And I was wondering...
I was just going to
Yes?
say, they did say that depending on what state this is in when the update starts coming close to the end of testing, they may hold it back for further work.
Which means
Which is
progress? It means one of two things. Either currently it's in such a bad state that they're not sure that it can be released on time even for their standards. Or it means that they got higher standards and hopefully will actually be trying to release content that works when it comes out. That would be
Learning
nice.
may have happened.
Well, I think that it might have been higher ups pushing down at them in the last update, and this is kind of like a minor update so they can do what they need to do. Maybe. That's a lot of
Right.
conjecture, obviously, but it is
Now,
nice that it's
yeah.
different.
I did ask one question of them that unfortunately it came too late on Friday for anyone to notice it, so I didn't get a response, and that was whether or not the music updates that they mentioned, or I should say the reversion of the U15 music updates was included in this build of Bullroarer and was expected because it's supposed to be coming in 15.1 and I just didn't know if that was in this version of Bullroarer. Anyone in the chat know that whether or not we have that update here?
I'm guessing Lillicate might know, but obviously, Lillicate says it is, I believe. I don't know if she actually went on and tested it or not, but she
I will
thinks it
quickly
is.
check the forums, but yeah, well.
Yeah, I tried checking the forums. I didn't notice anything there concerning this matter. So that's the reason why I was surprised on it, that I would have thought that there would have been some mention whether it was there or not.
She says after all that, but don't quote me. That's funny.
We will see. And Lily Kate, I'm sure, says, oh, at least the update is probably going to come after the concert where we've just done all our rehearsals for. All right. Anyway, that's the only update. Anyone else have anything they want to say on the 15.1 before we continue?
I'm surprised that they're already, ready for 15.1. We had the hotfix recently, and I'm glad
Well,
that they're actually putting this on Bullroar to test. I think
yeah,
it's
well,
good.
I'm actually expected it to be a well, because it looks like it's going to be coming out early December at in one or two builds in Bull Roar,
Right,
and
but,
that's this time
norm
which will come out for that.
normally for point updates, we don't get it on Bullroar, and we don't find out what's really in it until the patch notes get put up. So I guess the epic battle
Yeah,
changed that
yeah.
this time.
The epic battle is very definitely the reason why they're doing this because they need to know, is this thing working, and they want some people to test it out. And let's face it, after the complaints they got with 15, I'm
Yeah.
sure they want to make sure it goes on testing.
hmm
All right, let's go into the store sales. Dracula, what's on sale this week?
The free sample of the week is a Slayer Deed Accelerator, which lasts for 60 minutes. You do get one of those per account, and the coupon code this week is SLDE7. Once again, coupon code SLDE7, and as always, that is one per account. So make sure you pick wisely on which character to use that for. And the rest of the sale is one of those ones that who really cares about. It's 30% off legendary level cap increase, legendary item stat upgrades, and relics and relic packs. And we all know how I feel about the ally system because I use the big red thumbs down as the icon for the post this week. So that should tell you everything you need to know. Also, through the 23rd is loot box weekend, so you should see increased loot box drops.
Well,
So,
did you get your horse?
heck no. Do you actually expect me to get my horse? Come on now. No, and actually, I played for about maybe 45 minutes this morning, and I didn't get any loot boxes at all. So I don't understand when they say that it's an increased drop rate, because I would think I'd at least get one in 45 minutes. Get
Drek,
the
our
yo.
audience knows your reputation with the RNG. You're not
Th-
fooling anybody.
this is true. I was about to say, what am I saying? It's the RNG. Of course, I'm not going to get any, but we'll see. And we should know probably on Wednesday what they got up their sleeves for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So that should be exciting to see what they got on sale because last year there was some pretty good stuff for that. So stay
Well,
tuned for that.
well, obviously we will find out next week since next week is Black Friday. But we'll head on into the site news and we'll begin with a 5,000 turbine point code giveaway. And dang, why are we giving away 5,000 turbine points?
Well, my Patreon supporters helped make it possible, so because of that, it was a Patreon goal, and so we're giving away 5,000 turbine points on my YouTube channel, and so all anyone has to do to enter is simply go to the YouTube video and leave a comment in the comment section, and they'll be entered into the giveaway. It's that simple.
All right then. And who's not eligible? Anyone on this call right now?
Everybody on this call, probably. Anybody, associated with LOTRO players or on my YouTube channel.
All right,
But other
very
than
well.
that, everybody else is able to enter.
Right, now let's go into a poll which was asking, should Minas Tirith in Lotro be like that of the books or like that of the movies? And how did our viewers respond?
Well, Pineleaf, it seems that the books are very favorable, with 53% of the vote. People seem to want Minas Tirith like it is in the books, which means that there's going to be a black wall on the outside of Minas Tirith, and it won't be like the films, how it is in the films where it's all white. And someone in the comments, I don't know if they misunderstood me or not, but I was too worried to ask them, but you know how Minas Tirith has the really outer perimeter wall as well?
The Ramas Echo.
Yeah, that one is white, I believe. But the
From what I
actual
understand, it's
wall
just
on
a
the
normal wall, yeah.
the actual wall on the first tier of Minas Tirith is black in the books. So very different from the films. And I don't know, I actually kind of like the look of it better from the concept art I had on the thumbnail of this article. It actually, I thought, looked pretty cool. But it'll be interesting to see what they do, especially size-wise and verticality, and how they will deal with lag and all that stuff.
Well, lag is going to be a real fun bit when everybody runs into Minas Tirith at the same time.
Yep. And 31% said they want a combination, 12% said they want the movies, and 4% said other. And it seems like most of the people who said a combination or other basically wanted Turbine to get creative and do their own sort of thing, which I definitely want to see as well. I don't want it to be 100% one way or the other, but I think I'd want it closer to the books, especially when we've already seen the way it is in the movies and in a lot of different video game mods and things like that. It looks like the movies, so it'd be nice to see in a video game a Minas Tirith that doesn't look like the films, I think.
All right, thank you very much on that. So we'll head on from the Minas Tirith into Lotro video highlights. And what is the Elben Ritter trailer?
One of the most beautiful trailers you'll ever see, finally. This was just a great trailer that was put with the right music and camera angles, and they were able to show how beautifully epic Glocha really is. And so if you want to see something that really makes you excited about Lotro, this is the trailer to do it, I think.
Whee! All right. All right, so let's go into the Lotro line, part 19. The story continues. A brother's list, a brother's lot. Sorry, a brother's lot. My lot is misreading things, apparently. So, anyone have any comments on this article?
This series is still going? Wow. And seriously, this is awesome. I love this series every single week it comes out, and I can't wait for more. And if it eventually does end, I want to see another one because the writing here is amazing, and so are the screenshots. Everything about this article is great every week. And so if you're not reading this and you have been, following our site for a while, tune into this article. It's fantastic. And you might want to start from the beginning, but maybe not.
You'll get really confused, right?
Yep.
All right. So let's go into last week's Lotro Players Adventures, episode 38. Thanks, Elrond, which I believe was a reference to Elrond arriving at the end of an instance. We get there, Elrond arrives and say, "Hey, congratulations, you won!"
Fashionably late.
At least he got out of his library. I mean, he never leaves that place. So at least he was out of his library for once.
Well, imagine if he did leave. We have so many quests that go to him, the whole world would collapse.
Yeah, no one would know what to do. The whole world would literally collapse overnight if Elrond moved. Even if he was in another part of the library, there's lots. You can probably hide in there somewhere.
Well, I'm sure that he occasionally leaves the library for...
Pine Leaf. This is a family podcast.
I was thinking of eating dinner, but
Well, that
I mean,
too.
sure.
Well, he leaves the library for when you meet him at the beginning of Volume 3. Of course, he goes right to the
He
library.
goes right back in.
Afterwards,
He just likes to read, okay? Leave him alone.
he likes to read. Well, more likely he's wanting to make sure he adds a few more volumes to the library or something like that. So let's go into Brax's pick of the week. And what is your pick this week?
Wow, guys, it's not even 15 minutes into the show and I'm doing my pick.
Yeah, there's no news and hardly any articles this week.
Usually I can nap for at least 20 or 30 minutes before.
No napping.
So a couple of things, actually. So if you guys think back about, this isn't my pick, but I wanted to mention it. If you think back about a month ago when we did Extra Life and we put the RPG out there for people to download with all the Lotro players, news, staff in it, except Lillicate, which is getting remedied. I said in the article that I would mention in a future Lotro Players News podcast what the secret code was to unlock the DLC, which is already downloaded. It's not actually DLC.
The HLC, right? No,
But when we talked about the post, I forgot to do that the next week. And then I forgot to do it again. And then I was gone. So now I'm going to mention it.
Slacker.
Okay, so if you have the RPG and you want to know the code to unlock some of the secret things, including DJ Pimp Daddy singing Welcome to the Braxwood, everybody get your pen and paper. It's like a Microsoft key here.
Is it going to be a test later or what?
The secret code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, wait,
I'm
I'm sorry. Can you
disappointed
repeat
it's
that
not.
last
Don't
one?
forget to drink your Ovaltine.
I was going to say that's the same as my luggage, but
So if you
You might
want
need
to,
to repeat that.
all the secret code is 1, 2, 3. You got that?
Yeah, I got it.
4, 5.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's tough.
At this point, we're just stretching out the episode. Okay.
Yes. All right. So
as
what are
far
the articles?
as far as the picks go, I have 2 picks because I'm not going to be here next week, and I found 2 articles that were pretty neat. The first one comes from our friend Adrian over at the Malaysian, and I would say Malaysian MMO Gamer, but the blog is still called Malaysian LOTRO Gamer. On Twitter, he's the Malaysian MMO Gamer. And he did a early Bjorning musings post, which is a fairly positive article talking about his first 20 levels of experience with the Bjorning. I didn't find anything that was really different than what a lot of other people are saying, but it's just another viewpoint from another player out there that people might like to read about. The second one, second article is called "Why I Continue to Do the MMORPG Thing" over at mmorpg.com by Beo Hinman. And I just thought this was kind of a cool one because I know if you do this enough, this MMO thing, I think there's days that you kind of sit down in front of your computer or whatever and you go, why am I still doing this? And you kind of get a little introspective about it. And I thought this article did a nice job of pointing out some of the reasons that Beo at least continues to, is it Beo or Bo? Probably Bo.
I think it's Bo.
Continues to play the MMOs. And this paragraph particularly hooked me in because of the way he played with the words. He says, MMOs are not just worlds that we visit. They are worlds that we are contained within our real world. There are several layers of living that go on within an MMO. The player lives her life, but comes home to live another, while she is living the first one, while she is making friends and killing baddies in the second one, while she is eating at her PC in the first one. This layering creates not only a sense of nostalgia for the activity of playing the game, but nostalgia for the gameplay and the world in which it takes part. It's fascinating. It will only become more fascinating as these worlds become larger, more common, and hopefully more original and interesting. So he talks a little bit about nostalgia, and he talks a little bit about how it's interesting that even though a lot of MMOs are very old, and LOTRO fits into this as well, and the graphics hardly ever change, the UI hardly ever changes, there's just something about it that we continue to go back and gravitate towards, even after we take a break for a while. So pretty cool article. And before you ask, Andang, the reason it relates to LOTRO is because LOTRO is an MMO. So I'll just kind of head that off.
Really?
I knew that
I
question
didn't
was
know.
coming.
Okay, and wow. Okay.
I would never have guessed that connection.
But I was gonna say, after you read that paragraph and you wanted to repeat the RPG code, I don't understand that paragraph at all. There's a lot of depth there.
Yeah, it is. We should read it backwards.
Oh, I think we'll pass on that. And let's go to the news beyond LOTRO, which this week is part 2 of the Origins of Evil, where we witness, I guess, spiders doing nasty things.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's about I guess, the origins of the Silmarils and stuff like that. All sorts of nasty things that happen from the Silmarillion, and of course with the Dark Lord rising and doing all sorts of nasty, tricky, evil stuff.
You need to do an audiobook. The whole Silmarillion. Just reading it.
The whole Silmarillion.
Pineleaf doesn't
Well, I
need a
don't-
book. He can just talk for hours and hours, and people will still pay millions of dollars just to come and hear it.
You can just talk about spiders doing nasty things.
All right. So anyway, this is part 2 of the story on that, and it looks like there's going to be at least a part 3 because I can't see it ending with the death of a tree.
Maybe that's how it all ends, Pineleaf.
Well, it plunges us into darkness. It ends an age, and we'll have to start a new age, and we'll call this new age the first age.
Yeah, you definitely need to be reading audiobooks.
Let's go to the question of the week.
Okay. the question I decided to go for this week is about the antagonists or villains that Turbine's created for LOTRO specifically, and kind of how they compare or stand up to the ones that Tolkien has presented in his books, especially the Lord of the Rings. So I did provide some examples in the show notes that may or may not show up in the eventual article. But yeah, the first question is generally, what do you think about the ones they have created? So you have Mordorith and Mordor, and obviously those three, I think, for Shadows of Amor, and then you have Mazog mainly for Volume 2. Volume 3, you tend to have Dunlendings and Nurzim, who shows up for no reason and disappears. Uh, and Lang, I suppose. What do you think first?
On just the villains in general, or?
Yeah, in general.
I think in general, Turbine has done a great job with especially the main villains. Um, I'd say in some cases they made better stories than the films as far as how deep you get into some of these stories that you can really only tell in an MMO. And so I think the story that they're telling is perfect for a book or an MMO or some other type of long story-based game. And especially in Volume 1, the development of some of those characters is absolutely amazing. And you really end up hating the villains in Lotro, and that's, what you want out of a villain, a really good villain. And so I think by definition, Turbine has done a great job creating villains.
For Volume 1, I think Mordor was probably my favorite one, just because of how much they end up making you hate him.
Yeah, definitely.
Pine Leaf.
Well, they certainly have a wide range of what you think about your villains because you have those, such as Morgenvor, where you have pure hatred for him or something like theirs. Then you have I guess, the tragic villains, such as Amarthiel. You have the tongue-in-cheek sometimes villains, such as Mazog. You've got the one that you run a punch in the face, such as Luke Brennan.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have those who just try to make their lives worse, such as Gunane. So there's a very wide difference in the various types of villains you have, which is good.
And even people who think that they are in line to be king, which in the Gondor storyline, that's a really big threat from a story point of view, if you think about it. I mean, they're basically straight up challenging Aragorn.
Well,
And
I'm not too sure if they necessarily believe it because you sometimes get the feeling that maybe
right.
it's convenient to pretend they do.
Well, and also, they don't necessarily know that Aragorn's going around and doing things either. But it's interesting that, there's someone that's taking that role when most of Gondor doesn't really know about Aragorn, at least at the beginning when we enter into Gondor. So
Right.
I thought that was really a cool way to play that type of villain.
Do you think some of the more comedic villains actually ended up working out at the same time as maybe actually being threatening? I think thinking of Mazog especially, but I think Lou Brenning was kind of comedic at times too. Do you think that actually really worked out in the end? Managed to balance the humor and the drama, I suppose you could call it.
I think in Volume 1 there wasn't very much humor, but you really didn't want it there either.
Nah.
And so in Volume 2, they had a pretty good balance between the villain being angry and, being a really evil person and, telling jokes and stuff like that. And then in Volume 3, the humor kind of went away and it just got very serious. And I mean, there was definitely some moments where the heroes made jokes, but I can't think of very many where the villains did, and I kind of miss the villains making jokes as well in Volume 3.
Yeah, I suppose it's the one for Lou Brenning, but that's more of a morbid humor.
Yeah, and, even just one isn't that much comparatively.
Isn't the in their absence Gauntlords thing part of Volume 3?
It came with Volume 3, I believe, but some of them
It's
turned
not
up
technically
before it.
part of it.
Okay.
The whole story of that is after the Rangers leave, but
Right.
some of them are actually already there. I think Ivar obviously existed in Volume 1, so I think they had some of them there already. They just ended up making them more a cohesive theme with
Right.
Volume 3, which I believe they're meant to be a mirror of the wizards,
Yeah.
the 5 wizards. So that's an interesting way they kind of went about that, having the different themes. Like I think it was pestilence and um, I don't remember the rest of them, but those sort of aspects of each one, I guess.
Right.
I suppose the big question I would like to ask is: do you think about Nurzum especially, because he, I think, more than the other ones, is kind of way out there in terms of his story is a lot different from anything in Tolkien, pretty much. The others can sort of be drawn from other people or from other places, but he's just sort of way out there. Do you think that was actually
That's
a
that's technically true, but they do pull on a lot of Norse stories, which Tolkien was a huge fan of. So I feel like it's something that if Tolkien could have possibly gotten into, because he'd pull in other things from that mythology before. So it's not unheard of, but it's definitely not something that's inherent in Tolkien's stories.
I believe it was said in that book that he's a merging of a horn and a giant. I don't know how
Yeah.
that works.
Well, I don't know how the half trolls work either, nor do I want to. So,
It's
The thing I liked about Nurzum was, from a gameplay perspective anyway, not necessarily from a lore perspective, was that when I played through Wildermore for the first time, that was the first villain that I really felt like I am not going to approach that guy
yeah.
because he is just too huge and menacing. And when they told me to run during the story, my character ran. He went the other way. You know, it wasn't until the second or third playthrough that I actually got up the courage to run towards him and see what would happen.
Yeah,
that's actually
whereas
a good one.
I would like to, counter that in Gondor there's a villain where you're told to basically flee this villain. And I ran towards him because I'm like, I'm a champion. We're in Gondor. I'm supposed to be more of a hero. I'm gonna go after him, and it doesn't turn out well. And I do like that Nurzum you actually were really afraid of that guy, and I think that they did a great job crafting him that way.
I
Also,
think
the boss fight at the end, it's very video gamey, sure, but it's really the only boss fight that we have except for in Volume 1, I guess. Um,
yeah. I think the thing you mentioned about actually wanting to run when they tell you to is a good point, because I think in a lot of the other Volume 3 instances, I suppose you can call them quest instances, especially in Volume 1 and 2 as well, there's a lot of times where they're in drama mode, or they're just like at a point where you cannot attack them at all, and yet they're telling you to run. It just sometimes you don't. It doesn't make sense that you can't attack them. I
mhm.
actually thought that was kind of the case in one area of Central Gondor where he just flat out kills someone, and you can actually run right up to him, but you can't stop him.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work. I mean, if there was like a reason that you couldn't go up and stop him, that's shown, it would make sense, but it doesn't. And in there's actually a few of those cases in the game, I would think, where it does that. Sort of plot armor, I suppose you could call it.
Mhm.
What do you think in terms of how these individual villains end up being brought down in the end? So their eventual downfall. Do you think they actually managed to pull those off in a sense that is actually satisfying for the most part?
Well, there's one shining example of that, and I think we all know which one I'm talking
Think of this.
about.
Yeah, I think it's been long enough that people know what it is.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't be spoiling anything at this point, but it's Lau Brennan or Brunnen,
Yeah.
however you want to pronounce it. Yeah,
Yeah, New Brennan, they're done
Delta
ending.
Clan guy.
yeah. When the
Oh,
the little kid kills him. It's that I think was my most satisfying moment I've ever had in Lotro, and I didn't even do it, and I was satisfied with the way it ended. That's
yeah.
how well it was written and how well you disliked the character,
Mhm.
and you liked the way that his end came.
Well, Mazog was kind of like that too.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit.
And I
I
think
think
in Volume 1, when we actually took on those villains, it felt like, a real boss fight, and like it should. And so I think that that was also a great way to end off those villains, especially with what happened to one of the, more in the middle villains in Volume 1.
I don't think we really need to be vague on that.
I'm being vague. I'm not gonna be the one that people are angry at for spoiling. You guys can, but I'm not.
Uh, okay.
Yes,
So
and well, ending them isn't well, resolving them might be a better way because there's one case where a villain is
Not
not
ended.
killed in the end, but I find it satisfactory on how it ended.
Hmm.
mm.
Hmm.
Actually, one thing I'm thinking of is Gorsel for Volume 1. Not Volume 1, Volume 2. Because he's sort of, it turns out to be the guy who's really, aside from the Nazgul, obviously, the one who kind of ran everything that the bad guys did for that whole volume. And you don't actually deal with him in the main epic story. He turns up in one of the actual group instances that you can just do over and over again. Do you think that kind of was a good way to do it in terms of having closure? So no,
I'm not familiar. I don't remember that, but they did the same thing with Mazog with the skirmish, and that I think that's kind of fun. I mean, anytime it's like it's time to go kill a big bad boss. Let's go run that skirmish. You know.
yeah, Mazog's slightly different, I think, in that the skirmish is actually in the epic story itself, and it's sort of put as a story rather than as just
That's
a
true.
normal skirmish.
Well,
Yeah,
aren't the
I guess.
Gorthel ones technically part of the epilogues? So technically they
Yeah, he's part of
are.
the epilogue.
It is, but I suppose I think a lot of people never actually end up doing it because it is group required.
Right. But
I see your
well,
point.
they decided that that it would be pushing credibility to have him taken down by
Mm.
solo content, and there's a point in that because let's face it, he's this big bad guy, the one who's pulling the strings of Mazog and all this. He has this tower to command and all these people, and a single person to come in and kill him. Maybe if they had epic battles back in that time, it might have been able to find a good way of doing it. But yeah, I don't think that would fit in, especially in a solo
Mm.
skirmish. I don't think it
Why?
would fit.
I think also our characters weren't powerful enough then, whereas now we have faced, spoiler alert for Volume 4, faced off with a Nazgul and actually succeeded by ourselves, basically.
That is a good point of showing our progress because if you
Mhm.
remember, way in Volume 1, we can't even remotely contest them. And then you get to Volume, I think it's 3, where we managed to beat off one that's kind of injured a bit.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
then
there,
it gradually keeps going until we're somehow able to actually fight them toe to toe without them being weakened by plot.
well, there is an instance in Volume 1 where you chase off a Nazgul. It's just that, though I believe that's with inspiration, if
Right,
I
Yeah, and
remember
I
correctly,
think
because
and
it's a
originally
they're
group
we were
weak,
meant
instance with inspiration. Yeah.
and they're weakened as well in that. So.
It
that
is,
one.
oh,
I
that's right. He
think
is weakened because of
Hmm.
the of having a little encounter with the water earlier.
Yep.
I think in that case, the actual story originally was that you're fighting him as a group rather than on your
Yeah,
own. I know the
true.
inspiration is more for gameplay purposes, not story. So I think in
Yeah.
terms of the story, it actually is you and other people there at the same
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So okay, I'll
worded that
grant you
way.
that one.
So
Yeah.
to your point though, I think probably the reason I'm not familiar with that fight is because I've never done it. Probably if it's in the epilogue and it's group content, I've probably never done that fight.
Well,
So
actually, we did it last week, isn't that, or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, but Brex
Brax
doesn't
isn't on
do.
adventures
Oh, he's
though.
not in that group. Yeah.
Braxwolf doesn't play with you.
God.
Oh well.
Wow. We need to hire a therapist after the show. Anyway.
All right.
I would like to say though
Uh,
it's interesting in Volume 4, this is another Volume 4 spoiler alert, the heirs of Castamere, their downfall is basically we're taking revenge against them. And I don't think we've ever had like a revenge story before until now. So I thought that was kind of interesting how one of the key characters has heavy involvement into what's going on, and that causes him to take revenge, and we help him.
Hmm.
And I thought that was interesting how they're still telling, different stories than what they've done before, and finding new ways to keep the villains fresh and have new motivations and things like that.
Mhm. So we've had, like in the whole of LOTRO, we've had Angmarin, we've had men from Umbar, we've had Dunlendings on both good and bad. We've had a orc, although strangely only one has really become a well-known name in terms of as a character, like well personified. We've had a giant, which is a weird thing. Do you think there's any other parts of maybe not LOTRO's, Tolkien's writings that maybe they could take from to create new villains? Because I think we've maybe had a little less emphasis on individual villains with this volume and the previous volume than we had before. Like we had no Mordorith or Mazog that was on that kind of scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only book 2 though, so we'll see. Um, I don't know. That's tough.
It's especially tough since we're getting so close to Minas Tirith and the ultimate destruction of the ring, so we're kind of going to be inundated with these Tolkien-created antagonists
Hmm.
pretty soon. So there's not going to be as much room for newly created ones.
And as we
Especially,
get closer to the main villain of the Third Age, it'll be hard to add in more villains, I think.
I think it'll be especially interesting considering certain deaths that happen at Pelennor Fields. Who's actually going to be dealing the blow, so to speak? Because I don't think they're going to have some random orc do it, if you know what I
That's
mean.
true.
I would imagine they'd have at least some sort of development on someone who does it so that we can exact revenge and have it actually have some sort of impact.
Yeah, and there certainly will
Update.
be. I was having doing it because one of the predictions from Galadriel gives me the feeling that that we'll be doing revenge, so to speak.
Update 18, the Nemesis system.
Nemesis system.
I'm actually surprised that they haven't gone to create a Haradrim villain. I don't think there have actually been any named characters from there. Like we've had some from Umbar, we've had a Corsair, who is actually a good guy, but still. I'm surprised they haven't. Maybe it's going to come up later, but someone from there who ends up being more prominent possibly could happen.
That's a good point.
the real villain will be the Oliphant.
They have one who talks. That'll work out.
Yeah.
I just hope
You
that
just
after we go to Mordor and all that stuff, we go back to Elrond and there's a new villain called Elrond's Mailbox Craftsman. And this is going to be the hardest villain we've faced in all of Middle-earth because he fights us with laziness. It'll be terrible.
that would be horrific.
What? Okay, I think that's a little bit too tongue-in-cheek. Anything else on
Uh,
this matter?
I think that's a good place to end it.
All right, then let's go into donations. Let's give a big thanks to Oana for supporting us on Patreon. And if you would like to join Oana in helping,
Brax.
No.
Brax
if you
is
wish to,
having fun in the show notes.
yes, to help support LOTRO players, simply go to the donations page where you can help support the Players Alliance through Patreon. There you'll find rewards, including a mention on the podcast of your choice, or even a guest spot on the episode of LOTRO Players News or Adventures. And as for feedback, we did not receive any feedback on iTunes. If you'd like to give us a review, just leave one there on iTunes. As for featured comments, there are none. So I guess we'll have to go to emails. And we have an email from Sulo, and let's have Drac read it.
Why did I know I was going to read this? Dear LOTRO Players News, yesterday I completed a solo run of Helm's Dyke Epic Battle, and I must say I did rather well for myself. A gold and 2 platinum merit ratings. Well, good for you. On the side quest, and a gold merit rating overall. Not too shabby. I also got some of those new reward boxes introduced with Update 15. Having opened a few of those, I was expecting some stars of merit and maybe a piece of jewelry. What I found completely shocked me. Not only did I receive stars of merit, but one of the boxes also contained, get this, a blemished symbol of the Elder King, a level 100 first age symbol from a solo epic battle. I couldn't believe it. Screenshot attached. Understand that I'm not trying to brag here. My experiences up to this point has been that first aid symbols were somewhat difficult to obtain. I had heard of first aid symbols dropping from the Deepening Well raid, but never from a solo epic battle. Prior to update 14.2, I had ran over a dozen T1 Ost-Dunhoth raids to get a single FA symbol for myself, and that was with a full raid. While I won't claim to be an expert on epic battles, I am a rank 6 engineer, and so I've spent a decent amount of time to become, quote, good, unquote, at these things. Do I feel I earned the platinum ratings? Yes. Should players receive first aid symbols for running solo content? I'm not sure how I feel about that. You have touched on topics such as risk versus reward and, quote, easy mode, unquote, in the past. I decided to share this with you in the hope that it leads to some interesting discussions. So what do you think? Regards, Solo Ablandrable. P.S. Don't hate me. The RNG did it.
You didn't get a horse, so there's no reason to hate you.
That's right.
Right. So the main trouble thing here is what we feel about him being able to get this on the solo content, because it's something that you can get out of platinum boxes, right?
Right. And they did say that there was a chance that it would drop out of the solo epic battles. So, did he just get really lucky with the RNG? Probably. I haven't heard. I know the new epic battle, the Peligir one. I've seen and heard people talking about it dropping there, not regularly, but I know of 2 people that have got them doing a solo run of that. So maybe that's a
Yeah.
reason to do epic battles.
Right. But don't the same boxes drop for all of them, or do they drop different boxes?
They drop for all of them.
Well, they drop for. They're meant to drop for all of them, but I think there's some objectives that aren't actually hooked up with it yet.
The real question that I think that we need to know, that of course nobody will ever know because Turbine won't tell you, is, and I think people have been trying to figure this out with a lot of things, even the loot boxes are the same way. Does the loot table trigger when you get the box or when you actually open the box?
Yeah, that's always been a
Yeah.
tricky question.
You could guess, but
Like,
could be either way.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard.
I know in the past it was
about
definitely
loot
when
boxes,
it dropped,
opening.
because there were some things that couldn't have happened if it had been afterwards. But they might have changed things since then.
I know before, when I was playing Creepside, they would get loot boxes that would drop skins in them, or drop these tokens that you could exchange for skins. And I know there was one point where they were asked, where there was, I can't remember exactly why, but we were wanting to wait until after the update, like a update that would do something with them. I think it was either give the actual tokens themselves or increase the drop or something like that. And then at that time, it seemed like it was more based on when you opened it rather than when you received it. But again, they've never really confirmed either way, and I would never expect them to.
Oh yeah, no.
That would make the most sense to me to do it when it's open.
Yeah, I think they changed. As I said, I think it used to be one way, and that they changed it to when it's open. But as you said, I don't think they ever confirmed or denied the. I think they did confirm that at one point it used to be when it was generated, but I think there was an implication that they may have changed it at some point. So that's why they haven't confirmed or denied it since then.
So I guess, getting back to his question, well, what do we think? Should they drop in single player stuff, or should it definitely be like a raid only?
I think you should get them for a roughly equivalent amount of effort. I don't think it should necessarily be restricted to needing a group. It seems like a rather arbitrary restriction just having it for that.
Well, the trouble is that what do you consider to be an equivalent amount of effort? Because there are some classes for whom an instance would be easy, and another class for whom it would be impossible for them to get the platinum on it, simply because of it's imp- it's very difficult to balance the classes, an instance with the class, every class, so to speak.
That's true, but think about it like this. For the new zone, Central Gondor, if you do all the rep factions, you do all the epilogue quests that come up when you complete each rep faction, you get a deed completion that rewards you with a first stage symbol. Do you think that is a suitable enough grind to make that kind of reward acceptable? I don't
Oh,
know.
well, let me see, so is that what you get if you actually go through that ridiculous looking grind that it looks like?
It's one, I think, the main thing, yeah.
I was wondering what attraction there was to go through what looked like the worst grind system I had seen in the entire game's history.
Not even close.
No.
The
I'm
Grindiversary and Hobnobbigans are worse.
And the
Well,
whole
Grindiversary, I don't think
radiance.
there was a reason to do it. Hobnoggins, there is no real major incentive, I think, to do But you're saying here there's a first H symbol at the end of it, and to me, I say getting to full rep with 4 factions for which aren't enough quests to get. I don't know. It feels. I just tried that Corsair one in the first area yesterday, and I've wondered why in the world does this quest exist? To
Well,
kill
will
us?
you go back to the
To
beacon?
torture us?
So I guess what you're saying, Altaros, is you like the idea of having it available to solo players, but you want it to be a decent amount of effort, possibly
Yeah, I
even
would say so.
a larger grind than it would be for a raid size.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it to be like a random drop from a solo epic battle or something. It seems like it will be kind of cheapen
Yeah.
the value of it.
Well, I actually wish that, and they'd have to change the system a bit to do it, but in the ideal world, I wish that third age drops were what first age drops are currently. And I know that that would totally break the LI system in its current situation.
Like
but
it's not already broken.
Oh, ouch.
well, it works for what it does. But
Does it?
I'd like to see that, and then make first stages either A, not be existent in the game, or make it to where you'd be lucky to get one your entire playthrough of the game. I think that they are something that need to be so exclusive that it's almost impossible to get. Because the thing is, everyone who has a first stager in from characters from the books and stuff like that are pretty much the only ones who will probably ever have a first stager, and so it's very unlikely our characters would just be able to find them, even going into all these tombs.
I think this kind of
things
goes
like
back
that.
to an issue that was brought up when legendary items were introduced originally, is the whole naming convention of legendary items
Yep.
is problematic. But that's, I feel like, a totally different discussion than this.
We have mithril coins, so I think that ship sailed a long time ago.
I agree, but mithril coins is a little different than that seems like it's supposed to be, breaking the lore because there aren't really mithril coins. Whereas first stagers, those are so hard to find in Middle Earth, at this time frame,
Yeah.
and
I'm trying to think, what first stagers do we have outside of Glamdring, Orcrist, and Sting? What first
there's
stagers appear in the books?
I think that those are the only named ones.
Right, because the swords of Merry and Pippin, I think, are more like,
But I'm sure
I
some of
think, are
the
early third agers.
I'm sure some of the elves have older
I don't know if
weapons.
Elrond's one is, because his is named, I believe.
Yeah, I'm sure that most of the elves have probably at least access to second age weapons.
All
Anyway,
right.
They have their ways.
They have their ways. Yeah, true. All right. You can contact us by emailing us at podcast@lotroplayers.com, and you can also follow us at Twitter, the Players Alliance at Players Ally, Lotro Players at Lotro Players, Andang at PVMP_Andang, Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Sithrith at Sithrith, Draculetta at Draculetta_72, Etheros at Etheros, Lily Kate at Lily Kate Buggins, Mystery at Mystery XOX, and Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles. You could join us for the Players Alliance live shows on Mondays at 8:30 p.m. server time. You could join us for DDO Players News, and on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. server time. You could join us for Lotro Players News, and server time is United States Eastern Time. You could also join us for these live shows at lotroplayers.com/live. And you can also join us for Landreval for Local Players Adventures each Saturday at 5 p.m. server time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And this is Pine Leaf Needle saying this is all for tonight. And remember to skirmish responsibly.